They buried my harassment complaint in a folder called Resolved. So I learned the policy manual they forgot to follow, then pressed record. Hi, I'm Mia. I'm 26, a data analyst in Austin, and this is the story of how HR ignored harassment, and how their own policies became the shovel I used to bury their secrets. If you believe quiet people can be dangerous when cornered, buckle in. If you've ever been dismissed by HR or underestimated at work, tap like and subscribe. This channel is where the receipts get read, and the quiet rage gets a voice. The day it started, Austin felt like it had been microwaved. Heat clung to the metal door handles and trembled over the parking lot. I still remember my palms sticking to the steering wheel as I repeated to myself, "It's fine. It's just another meeting." It wasn't. Our office was a glass rectangle that trapped sunlight and optimism. Sales sat in the corner with floor-to-ceiling windows, and they liked to remind everyone that numbers bought the view. Data lived in the middle like Switzerland. Neutral, necessary, unnoticed. I was good at being unnoticed. Until I wasn't. Derek, 30-something and permanently sunburned from golf, managed enterprise sales. He had a voice that filled rooms and a laugh that apologized for nothing. We'd met when my dashboard flagged a discrepancy in his quarterly pipeline. He'd, jokingly, told me that numbers were more like suggestions, then leaned over my monitor until I could smell the citrus of his cologne and the sourness of something else, patience fermenting into contempt. At first it was small, a hand on the back of my chair that wouldn't leave, comments measured to be just shy of HR friendly. Smile, Mia. Clients can hear it in your voice even in emails. You're lucky to be in data. No pressure to look the part. The week his team got a spiff trip to Scottsdale, he came back with a tan and a new hobby, stopping by my desk at 5:58 p.m. and needing a custom slice of the revenue forecast. The day he trapped me in the copy room under the pretense of asking why his commission checks were light was the day I decided to report. He had that athlete's stance, legs wide, one hand on the paper tray as if it were a starting block. "You're killing my month with all these flags," he said. "You know what this does to my team when you escalate? Makes me look bad. Makes us all look bad." The fluorescent light hummed like a mosquito. "We're all on the same side, right?" I slept 4 hours that night. My stomach fluttered with adrenaline that couldn't find a target, like bees trapped in a jar. I opened a new doc titled, Facts. Time. Date. What was said. Voice in my head, don't dramatize. Be clean, numbers, not adjectives. The next morning, I booked time with HR. Caroline, our HR director, wore a blazer the color of oatmeal and a smile that didn't touch her eyes. Her office smelled like lavender cleaner. There was a framed quote about bringing your whole self to work, which became darkly funny later. I told her everything, hands clasped so tight my knuckles looked bleached. I kept waiting for her to ask a follow-up that proved I wasn't crazy. She didn't. "Mia," she said, glancing at her phone. "Derek is an intense personality. Sales culture can feel big, but he's a top performer. Are you sure this isn't a misunderstanding?" My scalp tingled. "I have emails, time-stamped. We'll open a case," she said, typing slowly. "In the meantime, I'd advise you to set boundaries. Be direct. If he's at your desk after hours, you can say, 'Now isn't a good time.'" I stared at the poster behind her, a mountain silhouette, the word courage in block letters. Courage, apparently, meant telling the person harassing you that your calendar is full. I left with a pamphlet about conflict styles. 2 days later, Derek doubled down. He accidentally sent a Slack message meant for a private channel. "Data girl is getting uppity. Who hired the ethics committee?" Someone reacted with a laughing emoji. The message vanished, moderated, erased. I took a screenshot before it went. When I forwarded it to Caroline, I received a "Thanks for letting us know, logging to your file," then silence. The heat outside had shifted into thunderstorms that cracked the sky in two, and I started waking up around 2:17 a.m. every night. Same minute, same sudden jump, like my body had set an alarm to panic. I tried melatonin. I tried long runs along the river where bats spun out from the Congress Bridge, and the water smelled like wet pennies. Sleep remained a door I could see but couldn't open. Then came the meeting that turned my complaint into a warning label. Caroline called me into a check-in, and to my surprise, Derek was there. He sat with his ankle propped on his knee, shoelace bouncing. Caroline folded her hands on the table. "Let's align on expectations," she said. "Derek feels micromanaged. You feel uncomfortable with his communication style. The business needs both of you." I watched her align me with my harasser. "I filed a complaint," I said. Let's not weaponize policy language," Caroline said, too lightly. "We're a family. We work things out." Derek smiled at me, all teeth. "No hard feelings, Mia. Next time, just come to me directly. HR gets so formal." That night, I threw up in my sink. I stopped eating breakfast because my stomach felt like a fist until noon. I started narrating my day in my head so I would have words later if I needed them. The office's open floor plan meant I could smell other people's lunches, hear the sticky tab of keyboards, and feel the energy shift when Derek walked by. You learn to hear people before you see them. Certain shoes, certain confidence. A week later, Caroline closed my case. "We found no policy violation," she wrote. "Please continue to collaborate with Derek and escalate to your manager if issues persist." She added a smiley in the email signature, a small yellow insult. I stared at the words until the letters blurred, then sharpened. Something inside me pivoted. A tiny, deliberate click. If HR wouldn't apply policy to him, I would apply policy to HR. 3 days later, I learned the first rule that would save me. In Texas, recording a conversation is legal if at least one party consents. I looked that up at 3:04 a.m., the minute when even the refrigerator seems to breathe louder than you. The next afternoon, Caroline invited me to swing by to wrap a bow on everything. I slid my phone into my jacket pocket, pressed record, and walked into Lavender. Her voice was extra soothing, like the way you speak to a skittish dog. "We value you, Mia. We just don't want things to get blown out of proportion." "Like HR burying complaints?" I asked, pulse loud in my ears. "No one is burying anything," she said. And then, like a script glitch, she added softly, "We just have to be mindful of optics with top performers." Click. The red dot glowed in my pocket. I didn't know it yet, but that sentence would later play through a boardroom speaker like a church bell. And then she said something that chilled me in the middle of a Texas summer. "If you're unhappy here, we can explore other opportunities. Sometimes a change is best for everyone." I left with my cheeks burning and a 5-minute recording that would become Exhibit A cliffhanger. When I got back to my desk, there was a calendar invite for a performance alignment plan from my manager. 3 months. Weekly check-ins. Objective: improve cross-functional collaboration. Initiated by HR. I stared at it until the edges of the screen went wavy, and I understood. They hadn't just closed the door on me. They were pushing me toward the exit. I learned what retaliation feels like in tiny changes that add up to a map with a red X on your seat. My tickets got reassigned to juniors to help them grow. My manager, Joel, started CCing HR on emails that previously ended with TAX. He softened the blows with phrases like, "just to be safe," and "for alignment." But a CC is a bullet with a silencer. I would answer a question in a meeting and watch Joel repeat my answer, slower, as if my words needed a male translator. Derek stopped visiting my desk and started doing something worse. He started pretending I was invisible. He would address questions to the intern sitting beside me about reports I had built, like pointing to a painting and asking the frame what the brushstrokes meant. The intern would look helplessly at me. I'd explain. Derek would say, "Perfect, thanks," to the intern. We all played our parts. The air got heavy with pretense. The Performance Alignment Plan, or PAP, because someone in HR thought the acronym would soften the blow, constructed a fiction about me. I was unresponsive after 5 p.m. I had a dozen time-stamped replies at 6:12, 7:02, 8:44. I was defensive when given feedback. I had asked for clarifying examples, and I lacked ownership. I had volunteered for the Revenue Integrity Project no one else wanted because it meant 3 months of combing through dull logs. I documented everything. Every time I fixed a metric, I captured the before and after. Every time I was left off a meeting that touched my work, I wrote down the attendees' names and the missing invite. I developed the strange, quiet confidence of someone who knows the walls are closing in, but also knows she's mapping the blueprints as they tighten. The insomnia got teeth. I'd wake at 2:17 a.m., sit on the edge of my bed and feel the floor cold under my feet, and listen to the cicadas pulsing outside like a soft, relentless alarm. Sometimes I'd go to the kitchen and hold onto the counter with both hands and breathe until my fingers stopped tingling. Then, because I'm me, I'd open my laptop and audit something, anything. Numbers soothe me. They don't lie, people do. It was in one of those 2 a.m. audits that I found my first real vein of gold. Our learning management system, the one tracking mandatory harassment training, had a strange pattern. Derek, who had never finished anything on time unless the reward was cash or applause, had completed his anti-harassment module exactly 13 minutes after it was assigned. So had his entire team. Completion batch, the log read, appended by an HR admin user account. I followed the audit trail. The admin belonged to Mina, HR's new compliance specialist, who posted inspirational quotes on LinkedIn and wore rose gold heels that clicked like impatient metronomes. I didn't know if this was sloppiness or a cover-up, but I knew it smelled like both. I saved screenshots, exported logs, and wrote down the file paths. If HR was bulk marking completions, they weren't just ignoring harassment. They were falsifying compliance. Texas might be one-party consent. Corporate was zero tolerance on falsified training records. I felt an electric tremor in my forearms. Fear and excitement taste the same for the first second. The next week, Caroline joined one of my PAP check-ins. Joel smiled at me like a dentist, gentle but ready to drill. "We want you to succeed," he said. "This is support." I had my phone in my pocket, red dot on. Caroline's tone was satin. "Mia, we're hearing from stakeholders that your tone can be off-putting." "Not what you say, how? What stakeholders?" I asked. "People," she said. "We don't want to name names." "That would be unproductive." "What would be productive?" I said, my voice steady because I'd practiced it in the shower. "A list of behaviors I can repeat or stop. Something measurable." Caroline smiled. "Being a team player." Later, when I played the recording back at 2:17 a.m., that phrase made something dark unfurl in me. Being a team player. Translation: be quiet. Meanwhile, Derek had escalated to the subtle kind of sabotage that HR can't police. He'd ignore my data accuracy notes in QBRs, then call them late-breaking bugs that undermined trust when the numbers failed to align with his narrative. Salespeople like Derek sell reality the way magicians sell truth. If you stare long enough at what they want you to see, you'll miss the handkerchief turning into a dove. Midway through month 2 of my PAP, I made a mistake. Not a big one, but the kind that can be inflated if someone needs a balloon. I used an outdated retention rule in a query and pulled a week-old snapshot into a current metrics slide. Derek pounced. "How are we supposed to trust the numbers if the analyst can't manage a join?" he said in a meeting. Laughter bloomed, tight, restrained, relieved it wasn't them. I corrected the slide in 7 minutes. The echo of that laughter stayed in my ribs all day like a bruise. That night I considered quitting. I stared at LinkedIn listings and imagined walking into Caroline's office, placing my badge on her desk, and saying the one line I'd dreamed of. "You can't fire me. I resign." Then I imagined Derek's grin. I imagined the lesson the company would learn. That you can pressure a complaint into silence and then call the silence proof. I closed the tab. Instead, I pivoted. If HR wouldn't protect policy, policy might still protect me. The company's code of conduct promised no retaliation for honest reporting and accurate record-keeping. The whistleblower hotline page, which might as well have had cobwebs on it, said reports went straight to the audit committee of the board. I felt like I'd found a fire exit behind a fake wall. But reporting without proof is confession without witness. So I made proof. I started small. Every meeting with HR record, every post-meeting summary they sent, compare the transcript to the notes. I began noticing edits. We discussed discomfort with Derek's approach became Mia acknowledged sensitivity to fast-paced communication. I highlighted each switch from active to passive, each diluting adjective, each swapping of verbs that shifted responsibility from perpetrator to environment. I made a spreadsheet. Column A, their words. Column B, the recording. Column C, policy clause violated. Then I widened the lens. Derek had a company card with an expense pattern that looked like sheet music. High spikes at quarter-end client dinners, and a suspicious fondness for a steakhouse owned by his old fraternity brother. I never had direct access to expense approvals. but data has a way of leaving fingerprints. The revenue integrity project I'd volunteered for gave me access to ledger data, and ledger data shook hands with expense data in a way most people didn't see. I found 4 instances where client dinner receipts matched the same internal cost center number for sales team morale. Same night, 2 categories. Someone was double dipping, or laundering morale as revenue. Either way, a violation. I saved everything to an encrypted drive I bought in a strip mall at lunch. I named the folder Sunflower. Innocent, pretty, disarming. Inside, a garden of thorns. There were close calls. Once, Mina from HR breezed past my desk when a script was still running and the screen showed an audit trail. "Working late?" she chirped. "Cleaning joins," I said, smiling with half my face while the other half listened for any tone that meant danger. She tapped her rose gold heel and moved on. My armpits prickled with cold sweat that smelled like metal. Another time, Joel asked me to send him everything you're working on for visibility. My chest tightened. People think panic is a racing heart. Mine is a stillness, a frozen lake with darkness under it. "Absolutely," I said, buying time. I sent a curated list. Then I went to the bathroom, locked a stall, and pressed my forehead to the cool metal partition and counted to 60 twice, breathing in the sharp tang of industrial cleaner until my pulse let go of my throat. Retaliation escalated because it always does. Derek started CCing Caroline on every complaint about me. Delayed again. Mia reopened a closed issue. "Scope creep." Caroline would reply, "Let's discuss offline," which is corporate for, "Let's keep this off the record." I started sleeping with my phone on my chest. Recordings sorted into a playlist I called Insurance. Then the email arrived, the one people joke about like it's a myth. Caroline sent an internal note about me to Joel, and, by muscle memory, added me to the thread. "We need to manage her out before Q4, it said. "The PAP gives us cover. Document tone issues. Derek is aligned." There it was, the quiet part, spoken out loud and written down. For a second, the world narrowed to the white rectangle of my screen, and the way the letters seemed to vibrate. I felt oddly calm, like when you finally name a smell. I forwarded the email to my personal account and printed a copy that I slid under my keyboard like a talisman. Then I took a walk to the parking lot where heat rose in ripples from the asphalt. My hands shook so hard I pressed them flat on the hood of my car and felt the metal burn through my skin. When I came back inside, Caroline had recalled the email. "Recall failed," Outlook helpfully told me, as if I needed the joke. That night, at 2:17 a.m., the insomnia gave me something back. Clarity. I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and wrote 3 columns. What they did, what I can prove, who can act. Under who can act, I wrote Audit Committee. Outside counsel, board. The plan was no longer to survive my PAP. The plan was to end theirs. Cliffhanger. I found a file on the shared HR drive that shouldn't have been where it was. Exit interviews, raw. Inside, a spreadsheet of names, reasons, and a column labeled, "Do not escalate." 2 of the reasons matched my complaint almost word for word. One cell had a comment. Top performer implicated. No action. My cursor hovered over the comment box, and I felt that same electric tremor in my forearms. I realized I wasn't the first. I was just the first with a tape recorder and a map. The night I found the Do Not Escalate column, the AC in my apartment clicked on, and I still felt hot, like the anger had moved into my skin. I put my phone in airplane mode and sat cross-legged on the floor with the legal pad again. Paddings. This time. Hotline. Proof. Chain of custody. Risks. I wrote like I was building a bridge. One beam, then another, checking every join. The company's whistleblower page linked to a third-party portal. It promised anonymity and direct routing to the audit committee. I tested it with a nothing. Complaint from a burner email. The coffee tastes like burnt crayons. An auto-reply confirmed reception with a case number and a request to attach supporting documents if available. Good. A dumb test with a smart result. I bought a little thumb drive with a physical switch that locked it read-only. The strip mall cashier didn't even look up. I named it Sunflower 0 and mirrored my folder, then wrote the hash on an index card in blue ink. I used a FedEx print shop to make hard copies, paying in cash, because yes, corporate paranoia makes you learn the texture of paper that isn't on your network. The clerk slid the stack to me in a manila envelope. It had a satisfying weight, like a book that could hurt someone if you threw it. Proof grew like a careful garden. The "manage her out" email. The Slack screenshot before it vanished. The training logs with Mina's admin account stamping completions 12 minutes after assignments. The expense anomalies with Derek's duplicate entries, annotated with dates, cost center codes, and the steakhouse name that showed up like a bad chorus. The exit interview spreadsheet, red boxes around "do not escalate," yellow boxes around statements that matched my own complaint. Pressured by certain sales managers, HR suggested I explore other opportunities. And the audio clips. Caroline saying mindful of optics with top performers, Joel promising the PAP was support while copying HR on everything, and a recording I didn't realize would matter until later, a hallway chat I caught unintentionally after. A meeting ended. We'd just filed out of a respect in the workplace, lunch and learn, when I heard Mina whisper to Caroline, "Audits in 2 weeks. We can bulk the stragglers. It'll look clean on the dashboard." Caroline's reply was the sound of a smile. "Do it before month end. Optics." I had shoved my phone into my pocket and it recorded fabric and footsteps and that one clear line. When I isolated the frequency on my laptop at 2:19 a.m., I could hear Caroline's bracelet jingle as she turned away. The body remembers little things, so do Mike's. I built a timeline. Day 1, report to Caroline. Day 19, Slack insult, deleted. Day 32, a line on expectations ambush with Derek in the room. Day 35, case closed, no violation. Day 36, PAP begins. Day 49, manage her out email. Day 58, bulk training completions. Day 62, expense duplicates. Day 67, exit interview file. Day 71, hotline submission. I left the last T, date blank because I wanted the next line to be clean. Audit committee contact. The risks column was sober. Retaliation, already happening. Legal, recordings legal with one-party consent in Texas. It sweep, possible. Psychological, insomnia swallowing me. I wrote one more risk and circled it. Believing they won. I underlined it twice. Joel pinged me the next morning. Quick chat? His office had a window view, 3 inches of sky and a brick wall, but he sat like a man surveying a coast. "I'm seeing improvement," he said. "Maybe we can shorten the PAP if you keep this up." "I'm doing my job," I said, neutral. I could hear my voice like it came from the next room. He leaned in. "Mia, off the record. Caroline thinks you overreacted. If you can acknowledge that and just reset with Derek, this all goes away. You're talented. Don't make this your brand." My phone was recording against my thigh. "I'm not overreacting," I said, "and I'm not building a brand. I'm building clean data." He smiled, patient. Words matter. Tone matters more. Think about it. I left his office and stood in the hallway with my back against drywall that felt flimsy if you pushed. I imagined what it would sound like to hear that clip echoed back in a room where the word optics didn't protect careers. I felt my heartbeat in my teeth. That afternoon, the compliance portal pinged my burner. "Your case has been assigned to the audit committee chair and outside counsel. Please provide materials." My forearms buzzed. I compressed Sunflower into a protected archive, split it into parts, and uploaded each one through a coffee shop Wi-Fi, with my laptop camera covered by a little round sticker a friend gave me. Once that said, "Smile, you're on not camera." I watched the little progress bars fill like water measuring time. 2 days later, I got a call from a number that wasn't in my contacts. I let it ring, because anxiety makes you superstitious. Then I let it ring again. The voicemail transcribed, "This is Hannah Moore with DNA LLP, outside counsel to the audit committee. We would appreciate speaking with you confidentially. We can meet off-site. That night, sleep came in a single dense slab, no 2:17 a.m. My body must have recognized the sensation of being believed before my mind did. We met in a downtown conference room that smelled like paper and peppermint tea. Hannah had the calm of someone who spent her days untangling professional lies. A forensic auditor named Luis joined by video with a face that didn't blink much and a voice that turned questions into scalpel cuts. "Start wherever you want," Hannah said. "We're here to listen." I slid the manila envelope across the table, and then, because I knew how easily anything can be dismissed as context, I slid the read-only drive, the index card with the hash, and my printed timeline. "I'm going to play some audio," I said, and my voice shook for exactly one sentence, and then steadied like a plane that hit clean air. We listened to Caroline's optics line twice. Louise said, "Please replay from 10 seconds prior." We did. The bracelet jingle chimed in the quiet. We listened to Joel's overreacted nudge and my measured refusal. We listened to the hallway whisper about bulk the stragglers. We looked at the exit interview spreadsheet and the do not escalate column that shrank the room with its audacity. We walked through the expense anomalies, my notes on timing that put Derek at the same steakhouse on 2 cost centers the same night. Hannah took notes in a slanted, elegant script that made everything look already decided. When we finished, no one spoke for a long second. It was the most beautiful silence I'd ever heard. "Thank you," Hannah said. She chose each word. "We will take it from here. You may experience movement." "What does movement look like?" I asked, because anxiety hates blanks. "It looks like preservation notices to HR and sales," she said. "It looks like interviews. It looks like the audit chair speaking with the board. It looks like phones put in drawers for a while. It looks like truth." She asked if I wanted anonymity maintained as far as possible. I nodded. "Yes, but if they figure it out, they figure it out." "You didn't light the match," she said. "You handed us the wet wood and the lighter in the drawer." We walked down the hall to the elevator and past a wall of framed photographs of founding partners. Everyone in those photos looked like they'd never been told to be a team player in the face of harm. Back in my car, I sat with my hands on the wheel and felt something uncoil in my chest so slowly, I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath for months. I sang half a song with no music, and then laughed at how bad it sounded. The next morning, movement started. IT sent a company-wide email. "Effective immediately, all employees must retain emails, messages, and files, pending an internal review. Do not delete or alter any company records. Questions to legal." The words, "litigation hold," weren't in the email, but they stood in the doorway like security guards. Caroline announced a surprise compliance check-in on the HR calendar with a subject line too cheerful to be real. Derek went very quiet on Slack. Joel asked if we could push our check-in a week. Mina posted a motivational quote about integrity in the Women at Work channel, and then stopped replying to DMs. Luis scheduled meetings with people who never have to meet. Payroll, IT security, 2 business analysts who hate HR but love rules, and, Glory, 2 ex-employees whose exit interviews were "do not escalate." The second one wrote in the public channel, "Guess today the escalator finally moves." On Friday afternoon, a calendar invite appeared titled Confidential Audit Committee Session. It was scheduled for Monday at 7:30 a.m. The guest list was hidden. The location line said only, "Boardroom." Cliffhanger. At 6:12 p.m., as the office emptied, Derek stepped into the walkway between cubes like a storm cloud deciding where to drop. He stopped by my desk and lowered his voice. "You did something," he said. I looked at him like he was data, not a man. "Did I?" He smiled, slow. "Hope you like the view from the mountain you think you're climbing." I pressed record in my pocket as I stood. "Hope you do," I said, and walked past him without turning my shoulder. The air felt thin and very, very clear, Monday smelled like rain even before the sky went gray. In the lobby, the receptionist checked in visitors who didn't wear badges, and I recognized the fierce haircut of someone from a big law firm. People were learning the difference between, we always do it this way, and we always did it that way until today. By 8 a.m., rumors ran like electric wires. Someone went to the board. No, it's about expenses. No, it's training. No, it's Derek. No, it's HR. The correct answer was yes. At 9:15, legal sent another email. Effective immediately. Derek H. is placed on administrative leave pending investigation. HR Director Caroline P. is placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Do not contact them regarding company business. The subject line used everyone's full names like the first line of a police report. The office made a sound I can only describe as a soft exhale. An intern murmured, "Holy," and then remembered to stop. Joel closed his door and then opened it again, as if the act of privacy had become dangerous. Mina didn't show. Slack channels with hearts in their names went silent. The Sales Wins channel suddenly looked like a scrapbook from a former life. At 11:03, the IT team arrived with cardboard boxes and a quiet efficiency that made my skin prickle. They walked to HR first. Caroline's office door was open, her lavender diffuser unplugged. A plant leaned toward the window like it was trying to leave too. Two security guards stood at neutral attention as her personal items went into neat layers. Someone whispered, "Is this really happening?" And someone else whispered, "Be quiet." By noon, a message from the CEO arrived. "We have initiated an independent review led by the audit committee. We take our policies seriously. Retaliation is strictly prohibited. If you have relevant information, please come forward through the confidential portal." It was the most direct the CEO had sounded in a year. You could feel the board behind the tone. I spent lunch with my back against the cool tile of the stairwell, eating carrots that tasted like paper because my jaw was too tight for anything more. I scrolled through old text to prove to myself that time still existed before this. I found a photo of the river at sunset, bats slipping out like commas into the pink. My hands trembled in that tight little way that happens when adrenaline hasn't decided if it's leaving. That afternoon, Hannah asked me to come to the boardroom. "We may need you to play something," she wrote. I walked into a table that had never held anything messier than a deck and set my phone down next to the pitcher of water. The audit chair, a woman in her 60s with hair like a storm front and eyes that didn't miss, nodded. "Thank you for being here." We started with the optics quote. It played in the expensive room like a bell. People don't realize how much space sound occupies until it has nowhere to go. The bracelet jingle landed like punctuation. A board member said, "Again." We played it again. Then the bulk the stragglers aside. Then the manage her out email on the screen. The recall notice below it like a caption that read too late. Then the expense anomalies. Luis walking through ledger records while the CFO's eyes narrowed and his jaw clenched once, twice. Then screenshots of the do not escalate column, the kind of spreadsheet that doesn't need interpretation, because it interpreted itself with a red box. When we were done, the chair looked at me and said, "Mia, do you want to say anything?" I thought of sleepless nights and the hum of fluorescent lights in Caroline's office. I thought of Joel's smile, Derek's hand on the printer, the way my stomach had learned the taste of adrenaline. I swallowed and said, "Your policies work if you enforce them. They fail people if you don't." She nodded slowly. "We hear you." By 4 p.m., more emails. Interim HR leadership will be assumed by outside consultant. All compliance training completions will be invalidated and reissued with proctored verification. Expense approvals frozen. Audit in progress. Effective immediately, no performance plans can be initiated without legal review. If you listen closely, you can hear an organism rewire itself. It sounds like paper and keyboards in the absence of laughter in halls where jokes used to cover sins. At 5:18 p.m., as the sky shook loose the rain it had been holding all day, I saw Derek on the sidewalk with a cardboard box. Security flanked him. He saw me through the glass and smirked, which is the last armor of a man who doesn't know which of his stories still works. He set the box on a bench and waited until I exited. "You think this sticks?" he asked, voice flat. Water soaked his collar. He looked smaller without the office around him. "It stuck enough," I said. "You went nuclear." "No," I said. "I went procedural." He laughed once. "You always were a robot." I stepped under the awning and met his eyes. "Robots follow rules. You should try it." He opened his mouth and then closed it. Security gestured toward the curb where his Uber idled, impatient. He lifted the box. One corner collapsed, spilling a framed certificate onto the wet concrete. The glass cracked like a mouth finally telling the truth. He didn't pick it up. The next morning, Caroline sent a company-wide email from her personal Gmail with the subject, "To my friends." Legal blocked it at the gateway, but not before 4 people screenshot it and sent it to legal with little notes that said some variation of, "Is this allowed?" When rules start working, people become brave in small, practical ways. Mina requested a meeting with legal. I don't know what she said in that room, but later she walked past my desk with that float people have when a weight sets down near them, not on them. She didn't meet my eyes. She didn't need to. Joel asked me to come by his office. He sat with his hands steepled, a posture he probably learned from a book. "I'm sorry," he said, words grabbing at generosity they hadn't earned. "I should have pushed harder." "You could have," I said. "You chose not to." He nodded, face pale. "I've been asked to step down as your manager." A week later, the company announced organizational changes. The press release didn't say Derek's name, or Caroline's or Joel's, but it used phrases that are corporate for implosion with paperwork. Transitioning out, effective immediately, enhanced oversight. The board formed a standing compliance committee. They brought in a firm to rebuild HR from the studs. They put the whistleblower portal on the homepage of the intranet and gave it a name that didn't try to sound cute. I'd like to tell you the office felt safe overnight. It didn't. Trust doesn't return on command. It leaks in, one behavior at a time. But the temperature changed. People stopped watching the door during meetings as if certain shadows might appear. Women laughed in the kitchen without glancing over shoulders. Someone put a little sticker on the espresso machine. "We believe you." It wasn't policy. It mattered. 2 months after the boardroom, the CEO asked me to join a task force to rewrite the reporting flow. "We need someone who understands what it felt like," she said carefully, because she knew she was asking me to stay in the room where it happened. I agreed with terms. The PAP came off my record. HR would put in writing that retaliation complaints trigger automatic legal review. I negotiated a raise I should have had 2 promotions ago, and a line in my title that reflected what I actually did. I also negotiated a safety valve. I could leave with severance if at any point this place asked me to forget what it had taught me. And yes, I went to therapy, because sleeping with your phone on your chest for months changes how your heart believes in quiet. Word gets around in every city. I started getting messages from people in other companies. "How did you do it? What did you keep? What if I don't have proof?" I answered the same way every time. Facts, timestamps, policy, witnesses if you have them. And if HR tells you the word optics, remember that optics don't save people. Evidence does. On a Thursday evening when the light made the conference room glass look like a lake, the audit chair sent me a handwritten card. "Thank you for reminding the company who it says it is," it read. "You changed the arc." I put the card in the sunflower folder, not because I needed proof, because I wanted to keep one object that held the feeling of the moment when my voice filled the room and didn't bounce off a wall. Cliffhanger of a different kind. Weeks later, a new hire asked where the harassment training lived. HR replied, "In your inbox at 9 a.m. tomorrow, proctored, webcam on." A lot of people groaned. Then 2 reacted with a heart. Here's what justice felt like. Not a parade. Not fireworks. It felt like standing on solid concrete after months of floors that shifted under me. It felt like breathing in a room where the air wasn't scented to cover rot. It felt like hands unclenching. It felt like hearing my own voice and recognizing it again. I didn't ruin careers. They ruined themselves. I held up a mirror. Policy, recordings, logs, dates. And the mirror did what mirrors do. People who were protected by optics learned that optics are paper walls in a windstorm. Sleep came back slowly. The 2:17 a.m. alarm in my body finally stopped going off. When it does flicker, like a ghost light on a stage, I remind myself, I have receipts. I always did. I will again if I need to. If you're listening to this and you feel the weight of being disbelieved, hear me. You are not dramatic. You are data. You are a timeline with a pulse. And somewhere, someone will press play and hear you. If this story hit a nerve, if you've navigated HR that protected optics over people, share your experience in the comments. I read them. I learn from them. I'm Mia, 26, Austin, and this channel is where quiet rage turns into careful planning and justice that doesn't need to scream. Tap like, subscribe, and send this to someone who needs the reminder. Even when they bury your complaint, there's always another desk to slide the envelope across.